Mama Kwabena was achiengeli speechless, her voice rising in disbelief. "You will never marry a girl like that," she shouted. "You are too good for her, Kwabena. What will people say?" But Kwabena stood firm, his voice calm yet unshaken. "I don't care what people say, Mama. I know how I feel. Na is a good person and I won't leave her." Kwabena was not an ordinary man. He was admired across Kigoma, a young, wealthy businessman who lived in a grand house at the city's heart, drove luxury cars that turned heads, and ran a company worth millions. Yet despite all his wealth, Kwabena felt hollow, as if something vital was missing. One evening, while driving home from work, he noticed a girl sitting under a tree by the roadside. Her clothes were torn, her eyes tired, and beside her lay crutches. Na, a crippled girl who struggled to stand, shoeless and alone. At first, Kwabena thought nothing of her, just another beggar in Kigoma. But as he continued driving, something gnawed at him. It wasn't guilt, but a strange uachiengse. There was something different about her, the loneliness in her eyes, maybe, or the way she seemed invisible to the world. The next morning, as he passed the same spot, there she was, again this time attempting to cross a busy road. Her movements were slow and strained, and cars zipped by without mercy. People walked past her like she didn't exist. Kwabena slowed, pulled over, and stared. Then, without thinking, he stepped out of his car. Na looked up, startled, not expecting help, especially from someone like him. "I'm trying to cross," she said shyly. Kwabena didn't speak. He simply helped her across. On the other side, she looked at him with quiet astonishment. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice small but full of gratitude. He nodded silently and turned to leave. But her words followed him. "God bless you, sir. People like you, I don't see them often." Those words echoed in his mind all day. Back at the office, he couldn't focus. Why did he care? She was just a homeless, crippled girl. Yet something about Na stayed with him. She had touched a place deep inside he never knew existed. Meanwhile, pressure from Mama Kwabena continued to grow. She had been on his neck for months, repeating the same lines. "Kwabena, all your mates are married. You have money, a house, but no wife. What are you waiting for?" Now, with a big family dinner approaching, she took matters into her own hands and invited Abini, the wealthy girl she wanted Kwabena to marry. To Mama Kwabena, Abini's rich family was all that mattered. But to Kwabena, Abini was proud, loud, and obsessed with status, and he could barely stand her. Mama Kwabena had insisted, and there was no escaping it. Kwabena had to attend the family dinner, and worse, he had to bring a date. "Abeni will be there, and I don't want you showing up alone," she said firmly. Kwabena couldn't imagine enduring an evening beside Abeni, the proud, money-obsessed woman his mother adored. Desperate, he sat in his office staring at his phone when a wild idea crept into his mind. Na, the crippled girl he'd helped on the street, the one he hadn't been able to stop thinking about. Could he actually ask her to pose as his girlfriend, just for one night? It sounded insane, but the longer he thought about it, the more sense it made. That evening he drove back to the same spot and found her exactly where he had before, sitting under the same tree, looking even more worn. Her clothes were still torn, her crutches gripped tightly in her hands. When she saw him approach, her eyes widened. "You again?" she asked softly. Without a word, he handed her a warm pack of food. "Eat first," he said gently, watching. She opened the pack and ate slowly. She was clearly starving, and it pained him to see. After a moment, Kwabena sat beside her on the ground, ignoring the curious stares of passers-by. "Na, I need your help," he began. She paused, confused. "My help?" she echoed. "How can someone like me help someone like you?" Kwabena explained everything. The family dinner, the unwanted match with Abeni, and his need for a fake girlfriend, just for the night. "I'll pay you well," he added. Na stared at him, stunned. "You want a beggar to pretend to be your girlfriend?" She asked him why. He looked at her seriously. "Because you're not like them. You don't want anything from me. You don't care about my money. She was still uncertain, but hunger, exhaustion, and desperation pushed her to consider it. What if they find out? She asked. They won't, he promised. Just dress nicely, smile, and play along. After that, I'll pay you and it'll be over. Na looked down at her crutches, unsure, but finally nodded. Okay, I'll do it. Kwabena smiled with relief. Thank you, Na. You won't regret this. But Na wasn't so sure. She had no idea what she was stepping into. On the day of the dinner, Kwabena took her to a salon, then a boutique. When she stepped out of the dressing room, he was speechless. Her hair was asciently done, the dress fit perfectly, and her eyes, once full of sadness, now sparkled with shy joy. Are you sure this is me? She asked, looking down. You look perfect, he said, still stunned. That evening, they entered his mother's grand home. The moment they stepped into the luxurious living room, conversation stopped. All eyes turned. Uncles, aunts, cousins, everyone stared. Mama Kwabena, seated with Abeni's parents, looked up and saw her son walk in with a woman she never expected. The moment Mama Kwabena laid eyes on the girl beside her son, her face tightened with disapproval. Who is this? She demanded, her voice sharp and cold. Kwabena, steady and calm, stepped forward. Mama, this is not my girlfriend. The room went completely still. Relatives exchanged glances, mouths parted in quiet shock. But before anyone could respond, Mama Kwabena rose slowly from her seat, eyes narrowing. Where is she from? She asked, her tone laced with judgment as she scanned Na from head to toe. Though nervous, Na remained composed. Good evening. Ma, I'm from Anra, she answered softly but with dignity. The tension lingered like smoke in the air. Mama Kwabena clearly wasn't impressed. This wasn't the girl she had picked for her son. She muttered, suspicion thick in her voice. Just then, Kwabena's younger sister Nandi stood and walked over with a bright smile. Welcome, Na. You look lovely. Come sit with me, she said warmly, guiding Na to a seat beside her. Slowly, the rest of the family relaxed, asking Na gentle questions. Though her answers were simple and cautious, her honesty and warmth shone through, and laughter began to return to the room. It almost felt as if Na belonged. But Mama Kwabena sat stiffly, lips pressed in a hard line, her eyes never leaving. Later, as the dinner ended, Kwabena drove Na back to the roadside spot where he had first seen her. They sat quietly in the car for a moment before he handed her a small envelope. This is what I promised, he said softly. Na took it slowly but didn't open it. So, is this goodbye? She asked, her voice low. Kwabena hesitated. He had planned to walk away, but something tugged at him. No, he said after a pause. I'll come back tomorrow with food. Na gave a small smile and stepped out into the dark, fading into the night. But Kwabena couldn't stop thinking about her, her calm, her smile, her presence. She was nothing like Abeni or the women he'd known. Over the next few days, he visited her often, sometimes bringing food, other times just sitting and talking. Slowly, the cold edges of Kwabena's heart softened, and Na too began to wait for his visits with quiet joy. He didn't treat her like a beggar. He spoke to her like she mattered. One evening, sitting together in his car, she turned to him and asked, Why are you still helping me? You've already done enough. Kwabena stared out the window. I don't know, he said quietly. Maybe because with you I don't feel alone. Na couldn't find words, but she understood. She felt the same. This was no longer a simple deal. Something true was beginning to bloom. But elsewhere, trouble stirred. Abeni had sensed something was wrong. The dinner hadn't gone her way, and since then, Kwabena had grown distant. She barely heard from him anymore, and what bothered her more was that girl, Na, who had appeared out of nowhere and now seemed to be everywhere. Jealousy burned inside her. How could Kwabena, with his wealth and status, choose someone like that over her? Determined to uncover the truth, Abeni followed him one afternoon. Hiding behind the wheel of her car, she trailed him as he left the office. Her pulse raced with suspicion. Finally, he pulled over at Chienga, a familiar roadside. Abeni parked at a distance, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding in front of her, and to her disbelief, she saw Kwabena step out of his car and walk straight toward that girl. Abeni's breath caught in her throat as she watched from a distance. There he was, Kwabena, the man she believed would be hers, sitting comfortably beside that girl, laughing with ease, as if she were an old friend. Abeni's eyes narrowed, her heart boiling with disbelief. "This is madness," she muttered, the bitterness crawling up her throat like smoke. How could a wealthy, respected man like Kwabena waste his time with a crippled beggar? Her jealousy bloomed into rage. This wasn't just a moment of pity. Kwabena truly cared for the girl. She couldn't let it continue. "I'll put an end to this nonsense," she vowed through clenched teeth. The next morning, without hesitation, Abeni stormed into Mama Kwabena's home. The older woman welcomed her, still visibly unsettled since the dinner. "Good afternoon, Ma," Abeni greeted with fake sweetness. "There's something you need to know." Mama Kwabena sat down with a weary sigh, and Abeni leaned forward like a serpent preparing to strike. "That girl your son brought, nah, she's not who she pretends to be. She's no proper lady. I've seen her with my own eyes. She's homeless, Mama, a street beggar with nothing to her name." Mama Kwabena gasped, stunned. "That can't be. Kwabena wouldn't do such a thing." But Abeni pressed on, delighted by the older woman's shock. "He visits her often, right there on the roadside, as if she's his secret." Mama Kwabena's face hardened like stone. She rose abruptly, fury in her eyes. "This will not happen. My son cannot marry someone like that. Never." That evening, when Kwabena returned home, he found his mother waiting for him, her arms crossed, her face ablaze with rage. "Is it true?" she shouted as he walked in. "That girl you brought to dinner, she's a street beggar." Kwabena stopped mid-step. The truth had come out. There was no reason to lie. "Yes, Mama," he said quietly. "Na lives on the street, but I haven't lied about what I feel. I love her." Mama Kwabena's mouth opened in shock. "Have you lost your mind? You, a man of your status, loving someone like that? What will the world say?" Kwabena looked her in the eye, voice calm but unwavering. "I don't care what the world says. She is kind, she is good, and I'm not leaving her." Later that night, Kwabena couldn't rest. He knew Na had to hear the truth from him, not from the angry mouths of others. He drove to her usual spot, Biachiength, the same quiet sky. She sat on the curb, her crutches resting beside her, staring up at the stars. When she saw him, her face lit up, but the joy quickly faded as she noticed the worry painted across his expression. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. Kwabena sat beside her, gently taking her hand. "My mother knows everything," Abeni told her. "I'm so sorry." Na's shoulders sank, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew this would happen. People like your family, they'll never accept me. I'm just a broken girl with nothing. I can't even walk properly, Kwabena. I have no home, no name they'd respect." Kwabena turned to her, his grip tightening with sincerity. "You're wrong, Na. You're the strongest person I know. You've lived with pain and still smile. You're real. You're not pretending, like the others." Her eyes filled with tears. "But why would someone like you love someone like me?" she asked, voice trembling. Kwabena wiped her tears gently. "Because your heart is pure. That's more valuable than all the riches I have." And for the first time, through her tears, Na smiled. Not out of politeness, but because she felt truly seen. Though Achieng's voice had whispered, "I love you," her eyes still held a glimmer of fear. "Your family, they'll never accept someone like me," she murmured. But Kwabena held her hands firmly, his gaze steady and unshaken. "Let them say what they want. I will fight for you, Achieng. You are the woman I choose, no one else." Achieng looked up at him, heart swelling with emotions she had never dared to feel. Her life had been shadowed by rejection and pain. But in that moment, someone was choosing her, not out of pity, but out of love. "I love you too, Kwabena," she whispered at last, her voice trembling like leaves in the wind. Kwabena smiled, feeling something heavy lift from his heart. "We'll face this together," he promised. yet both knew their path wouldn't be smooth. The struggle had only just begun. As the weeks passed, Kwabena remained by Achieng's side unwavering. The whispers, the stares, the cold shoulders, none of it broke his resolve. His siblings began to see what he saw: the grace in Achieng's strength, the gentleness in her spirit, and the joy she brought to their brother's life. Slowly, they began to welcome her. But Mama Kwabena remained unmoved. "Kwabena, can't. You see, this girl is Bia Chingthew?" she would ask each time he visited, shaking her head. "You need someone like Abeni, a woman of status from a good home." But Kwabena always answered calmly, "Mama, I've made my decision. I love Achieng." His voice never wavered. Mama Kwabena could not understand how her successful son would fall for a girl who had once sat barefoot by the roadside. And Abeni, she wasn't done. With bitterness curling in her gut, she spread vile rumors. "That girl's using him for his money," she whispered to anyone who would listen. "She's hiding something." The gossip seeped into ears, poisoning hearts, and for a moment, doubt flickered within the family again. But Kwabena didn't let it fester. He stormed straight to Abeni. "Enough," he said sharply. "I know what you're doing, and it ends now. Say what you like, but I love her. I won't let anyone ruin that." Realizing she had lost, Abeni retreated in silence, seething. Sometime later, Kwabena paid his mother another visit. This time, Mama Kwabena was quiet. The fire in her had dimmed. "Are you truly sure, Kwabena?" she asked softly. "Is this girl what you really want?" Kwabena nodded, his voice gentle. "She has nothing but love to give me, Mama, and that's more than enough." Mama Kwabena stared at her son, and in his eyes she saw truth pure and unwavering. Finally, she let out a long sigh. "If she brings you happiness, then I will support you." Kwabena's heart soared. "Thank you, Mama," he whispered, his eyes gleaming. Soon after, wedding plans began. It was a humble celebration, filled with family, friends, and joy, more meaningful than any grand affair. But the greatest blessing came after the wedding. Kwabena had taken Achieng to a specialist, and through months of care, surgeries, and therapy, her body began to change. Little by little, her legs found new strength. She still limped, still leaned on support, but she could walk, something she had never thought possible. One quiet evening, as the sun melted behind their home, Achieng stood from the couch and took careful steps toward Kwabena. His breath caught in his throat, tears springing to his eyes. "Look at you," he whispered, awestruck. "You're walking." Achieng reached him and held his hand, smiling through tears. "You believed in me, Kwabena. You gave me the courage to believe in myself." He pulled her close and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "You never gave up, Achieng. That's what changed everything." In that moment, it didn't matter where they came from, how much money they had, or what others had said. What mattered was the love they had fought for, the love that had endured every storm. And together, hand in hand, they walked into a future not defined by riches or appearances, but by resilience, hope, and a bond that could not be broken.